Hello and welcome back. This is Sherri with Heart and Soulful in the studio today with a fun little share about rust. So if you're just joining me for the very first time, welcome. I hope if you enjoy this video, you will please give me a thumbs up and click on subscribe if you don't want to miss out on future videos. If you'd like a notification when I post something new, click on the little bell and you'll receive a notification so that you don't miss out on anything. So today I wanted to just do a little share. I wanted to rust some more paper clips, and the chemical that I usually use is from Modern Masters. It's called Rust Activator. It's blue, and I'll put a link down in the description for that. That is kind of, to me, like the quick, easy way to rust metal, any kind of metal pieces, really quick. But I don't have it here today. It's in my messy workshop. And I wanted to do a few things. So I kind of did some experimenting like I always like to do. So I wanted to see if I could use just some household products that I had to rust a variety of metal pieces and then also some fabric. So in the past, I have done videos where I have rusted fabric using a variety of metal pieces, you know, gears and coins and nails and all that kind of stuff. And it takes a little bit longer. It's a certain way to do it. There's lots of ways to do things. I always say there's more than one way to build a box. So because I tried something new today, I thought I'd share. So this is something like I said, that I've done in the past, but I wanted to kind of do a reverse of that in a way. So I took some metal pieces, shiny metal paper clips, and little binder clips. And then I had a couple of other little odd things. I had some gears. I've now rusted them all, so you can't see how shiny they were to start, but they were all kind of silver, shiny, you know, made in China probably, kind of a tacky, shiny silver. This has had a treatment on it that I'll show you. But so I wanted to try a few things, and this was kind of my first attempt at it. So what you're going to need is you want to wear gloves probably, even though these are all household items. When you mix them together, they become corrosive. So, you know, you don't want to have that all over your hands. It's just going to dry out your skin and maybe you have a reaction to it. So wear some kind of protective gloves, and then work either in a well-ventilated area outside or wear a respirator. Again, these are household products, but when you mix them all together, it can be kind of potent and irritating, and you don't want to breathe in that stuff. So you want to do, you know, be aware of your ventilation, gloves, and then some protective eyewear, just in case you splash anything around. You don't want to get that on in your eyes for sure. And then you want to protect your area. I did not do this here. I did it in the laundry room where I have just a counter that I can be messy on. So what I started with, again, shiny, any kind of metal. You'll find videos to rust iron and that sort of thing, but I want to rust things that may be made out of different metals or even have a coating on them, like these paper clips. You'll see in the process, there's like a gold coating on these, and under that, it's just some kind of silver-based metal that they're made out of. So any kind of, you know, that kind of junk. And then I used just an old measuring cup that I used for all my messy chemical things. Something glass. This is Pyrex. I've also done this in plastic. So just these, you know, the lid was missing. So now I have this little guy that I can use for messy things. And then because I do jewelry, I have these tongs. That way I don't have to touch anything if I don't want to. I can just use these. So maybe some tongs. But if you have gloves on, you can, you know, dig things out too. But I think they're kind of handy to have. And then maybe a paper towel in case you know, get something spilled anywhere. So once you have your things together, you want to protect your surface with a piece of plastic, or maybe you're doing it outside, but put a piece of plastic down. And then I just use, like I said, my cup, and I'm going to throw some of these in here, you know, just for fun. So you just put them in the bottom. You can put as many as you want. Then the first thing you're going to add is you're going to take just some distilled white vinegar. This is just the, you know, large thing because I go through it and use it. You might use it for cleaning or something, so maybe you have it. So just plain white vinegar, and then pour enough in there I know there's recipes out there that are measured out, but I wanted to try it to see if I just eyeball everything and don't measure to see if it would work, and it did. So just put enough in there to cover your items, and then you'll be able to kind of see where that is, you know, where the mark is. So you're going to do maybe it's 2 parts of the vinegar to 1 part of just regular old hydrogen peroxide. So this is, you find this in the pharmacy department. The white vinegar you find in the cooking section of your grocery store. So in the pharmacy section, you'll find this like with all the bandages and that sort of thing. So you just pour this in, and if you've looked at your, you know, amount, you can just kind of eyeball another like half that amount then of the peroxide. So it'd be 2 parts vinegar, 1 part peroxide, and then just regular old iodized salt. So just regular old table salt, and probably maybe a teaspoon or so. I just kind of poured it in, depending on how much liquid here you have. You know, you're just going to pour some salt in, and that's going to be what starts the whole corrosiveness. Once you've had that in, you kind of mix it around. Maybe you're doing this in a mason jar or something. You can kind of shake it up just to get everything kind of mixed up, and then just let it set. And you, however long you want, you can go look at it and you'll see it gets foamy and immediately turns to this kind of rusty color. So this is, I've just put it in this because I'm saving it, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But this is just rusty liquid from those, the vinegar, the hydrogen peroxide, and the salt. And then throwing those shiny items in, it doesn't take too long, half hour, hour. I let this set for quite a while because I was just doing other things. So, you know, if you're going to do this in one day, just mix up your goodies in the morning and then go around and do whatever you're doing and come back, you know, at lunchtime, and you'll have this. So you can see in this batch, I did this yesterday because I just let it air dry, and you can see all the salt. I put way too much salt in this one. I didn't need that much. But I just thought, you know, maybe less is good, more is better. But I really didn't need that much. And you can kind of see, if you see these parts, I can kind of maybe rub off some of the, you know, this, you still see some of the silver through there. So you're going to kind of just do as much as you want. If I wanted to do this again, which I did, you'll maybe get more rust if you do it a second time. You could also just put it in a spray bottle, your mixture, and if you see that it didn't rust as much as you want, just spritz it and let it dry again. So I think when I did these, I went and put them outside in the sun just to kind of get them dried out faster. You could use your heat gun. I did on something I'm going to show you in a second, but if you do that, be sure you have windows open and you're wearing some kind of respirator so that any of the fumes that you create from, you know, blow drying it, you won't be breathing that. So best thing, safest thing, I think, is put it outside in the sun. So this was my first attempt. And then I thought, you know, I have people that follow me that don't always like the really grungy rust things. And so I took some of that last batch that I showed you, and this morning I rinsed it off because I could tell that it really wasn't too much. So if you can see this, I know they kind of look shiny because I've got light shining on me here. And this one actually is pretty shiny. But if you see, they do still look like old ones. You know, they're not, like this was gold to begin with, and now it looks at it's silver because the gold is gone. And these were silver to start, but now you can kind of see how they just look grungy. So if you want them to not be rusty and just, you know, a little grungy and not look brand new, then do that first step that I did and then rinse it off and let them dry again. So you get kind of a semi-grungy look. And then I wanted to do a little bit more, and then I also threw in a couple more items. So I had these were done yesterday, and so they ended up looking like these, but I wanted them to be darker and more rusty. So I did them again today, and I really like how these turned out. So again, you can add to if you didn't get as much as you wanted. These I didn't leave in, this first batch, I didn't leave in as long. I maybe just left those in half hour, something like that. And these were left in probably 2 to 3 hours maybe. And so I liked how much, and I didn't put as much salt in this bath. So this is actually how they came out of the bath and dried. And you see there's no residual salt because I put the normal amount, probably a teaspoon-ish. And then these are the clips, and you can see they came out darker too. These might have been the ones, well, these were silver. Some of them were these that are black on part of it, so they could have been those too. I had some that were all silver, like this, and then some that had some black on them. So I really like how they came out when I left them a little bit longer, and they're not without too much salt. This was one of those flat back keys. I think it's probably a Tim Holtz embellishment. And they look kind of a gunmetal gray to start, but I wanted them to look a little more old. So I did that one too. And then these are some old keys I threw in. I had not done those before. I've done lots of keys, but using my Rust Activator, which is how I did this batch here. So I thought I'm going to try it with keys too. And these were just old, brass keys. And keys are made out of, newer keys are made out of different materials. So they're going to, take on different patina. But that worked too. So once you have it to this point, you can spray seal this if you want. Just with like a matte sealer, and then that way nothing comes off, or they might have a little bit of shine to them. Then I kind of like leaving them just how they are, but you're welcome to seal those too if you want. And then I tried another experiment, and that was because I had all this yummy looking, I know not yummy is not the right word, but it was just a pretty color, and I love rust. So I thought, what if I use this on fabric now? So I took some lace, and I had a piece, it all started out just this bolt of white lace, and I've just taken off a piece in, let's see, this one, if I can tell the difference in the colors already here. Okay, this is tea stained, just with plain tea. I just steeped it, for a little while in a pot of tea, and I wanted to compare the color for you. So tea stain, and then this is the rusted one. Now, this one was rusted, but I rinsed it. So it's not as dark as it started out. When I did this, I did lace and I did some fabric that I'll also show you. And because of the salt in it, it was kind of crispy, not crispy, but just not as pliable. You could tell it was kind of dirty just from the salt being in it. So I rinsed this out this morning and let it dry again on its own. And so it has more of the same texture as the tea stained one. But then I didn't have an example to show you when it was crispy. So I used this batch, which was my second batch, less salt in it. But I soaked it in there at the same time as I did my rusty pieces. I had done about 3 batches, so I already had some of this. So I kind of just put this in there with it. And you can see it when you see that crispy. It's not really crispy. It's just stiffer than the one that had been rinsed. So I kind of like that too. And you can see on this one, it's really uneven because I don't know if maybe just the intensity or how long I left it in there. It didn't take everywhere. And I really kind of like that. So there's kind of a variegation to it. Where this one, because I rinsed it, I maybe kind of mixed everything up, and kind of spread it out. But it's really kind of a pretty peachy color. So those are my 3 lace experiments. And then I also did some fabric. Now the fabric I did yesterday. So I wanted to show you the different ones that I ended up with. So this was if you bought some of the more recent the more recent scrim that I had listed in my Etsy shop, this was that I had saved myself a little piece of it. I'm totally out now. I will be hunting down for more large volumes of scrim so that I can list it again. But this was the one that was most recently listed that has more of a grain in it. and has kind of that linen-y look as a little tighter weave. It's a little harder to tear because it's a little tighter weave and a little thicker. But I did a piece of that, and I'm going to end up using this, I think, on the cover of my slow stitch journal. I think the piece I tore happened to be big enough, and I think I'm going to do some embroidery on it. But this is not rinsed afterwards, so it has kind of that stiffness to it. And I may go ahead and rinse it since I'm going to use it on my book cover, but it's going to get glued down, so it probably doesn't matter. So that was one piece. And then I had some of the scrim that I was using before this one. I still had a little piece left. So I actually dyed this whole piece. It was one piece. And so I dyed it in the rust. And I didn't really want it to get everywhere. I wanted it to look more stained. So I kind of, on my plastic, I just used this to kind of mop up the rust that was there. And that way I had some still white parts. And I wanted to show this comparison because this one I did rinse today. So I rinsed it and I let it just air dry. And so it's back to its kind of soft bit. This is, you can see it's stiffer and it's holding all those wrinkles, because this one I did not rinse afterwards. So, you know, I just wanted to show that difference, because you might, depending on what you're doing with it, like if in my Bodhi journal, I might like it this kind of crinkly look. You know, once I glue it down or anything, if I'm not careful, I'll lose those, you know, because I'm going to be getting it wet again. But we'll see. I'll probably use it like that, just to kind of get that texture, or maybe even use it in slow stitching or something, just to get those nice stiff wrinkles in there. So that is another piece of scrim. And then I had just this piece of cotton fabric that I've been using for slow stitching. And again, this one is with the rust, that first batch. But what I did for this one is I put it in an empty spray bottle. Now, when I say empty, this was my sheer shimmer craft spray. And I was down to such a small amount that it would not spray anymore. So I poured the remainder into another new bottle. So I had this bottle and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to rinse it out. I'm going to leave that little bit of residue in there. And this was the batch I did yesterday. So you can kind of see how orange it is. And then this is the batch I did today, which is a lot darker, a lot more red in it. And that may be just because of the different items that I put in this one. This one had all those gears in it, and this one did not. So this one had keys in it too. So I don't know. It may have been just what I put in my bath. So I have this one and it has just the slightest amount of sparkle, really just whatever was left in my bottle. And so now I've kind of created a rusty shimmer spray. So I just sprayed this, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on camera, but there is a tiny, if I get the light right, there is the slightest little shimmer on this. And you're probably not going to see it, but you know, when you look on a sandy beach and the sun hits it just right, you see that little bit of glimmer. It's kind of like that. So I sprayed this instead of, you know, dunking the whole thing. I sprayed it with the spray bottle on both sides, and then just let it dry. And again, because this mixture still has that, you know, some salt in it, probably not as much as that, well, I guess I dumped it all out into that, you know, when I was letting those dry, because there's so much salt there. But this one does have a little bit of that stiffness. It's kind of holding wherever it curled, because I did not rinse it. And I don't know if I'm going to rinse this one or not, because I'm afraid I'll mix it up more and then maybe lose the sparkle. So what I might do is tear this in half and rinse half so I can do a comparison for myself. But those were kind of just some ideas of rusting some items with just ingredients you have at home. Didn't have to go to the store. And then using that liquid and not wasting it, using it on some fabric. So we'll see how that works out. I saved this because I want to do some of those linens. I don't know if my video will be up yet, but prior to recording this one, I recorded my thrift store finds. So I'm using some of those things. This lace was in there, for example, and I have a bunch of linens that I think I might want to either, you know, douse some rusty spots on. Oh, that was the other thing that I did too. I did spray, because I had it in the spray bottle, I decided to do a piece of paper. So I took a piece of paper that I had already tea stained. It was pretty light. but it already had that kind of crunchy texture. And then I sprayed on it, letting myself get some really good rusty drops on it. This has that sheer shimmer in it too, so it's almost a contradiction for being so grungy, but I kind of like that too. So I'll use this for something. So don't waste your liquid afterwards. You can redo more. I'll probably use this and maybe dunk all that first batch because I really like how the second batch turned out. So I think I may use this on the day one with all the salt and do them again, and then do some fabric with what's left. Okay, I'm back. I ended up scrapping the end of this video because I hadn't uploaded it yet, and I did go ahead and redo that first batch with all the salt. I wanted it to be a little darker, and I just wanted to keep experimenting. So this is what I have, and I'm really excited because I just love how it turned out. So I have to tell you, when I ended up doing a new batch of the mixture of the vinegar and hydrogen peroxide and salt, and I might have done kind of in between because of how much I poured in there. I probably did maybe 2 teaspoons of salt, but anyway, I left them for hours and hours because I kept going back to check them. And when I initially put the mixture in there and shook it all up, it actually kind of cleaned everything. So I lost the rust that I originally had. So, if you wanted to just maybe do incrementally more, spraying it from a spray bottle might work. But I wanted to get them pretty dark, but not so crusty with salt. And you can see these got much darker, but the rust isn't like falling off of them. So I love how they came out. I don't know if my lighting is very good in here. Maybe if I put on a white piece of paper. Let's get a scrap here. And you can kind of see. So they're just a really pretty rust and grungy and kind of just a dark browny kind of rust. Anyway, I just love how they turned out. So I wanted to show what I did there. When I put them out, because they were so wet, I have a piece of freezer paper here and then a paper towel. And I'll show you, because I had done some fabric too when I did this, that got totally saturated from my lace. So I also grabbed more of that white lace. And this one I haven't rinsed, and I'm hoping you can kind of see the crusty texture of it. But I put it in that big plastic with the liquid that I had left over from before. And it's funny because it really kind of has a reddish, rusty tone to the liquid. And I put this in there, and it kind of all took on that peachy color. But then I just, because I had such a large amount of lace in there, I kept kind of sloshing it, flipping it back and forth, agitating it. And then even with my tweezers, kind of, turning it the other way so it would get on the other side. And then when I took it out, I laid it on this piece of paper towel that is totally saturated. And this camera is not doing justice to this color, but it's really a kind of a orangey sepia color almost, where you can see it kind of settled in the edges even more. But I had just set this whole batch of lace, and it was so wet still that it just soaked that whole paper towel. And you can kind of see, I think, the crunchiness of it, the texture that it left. I'll probably, maybe leave some of this that stiff, but then some of it, I think I'm going to rinse too, because these are a bunch of just different random pieces, and rinse some off and see what happens too. But I like how, as it was drying, how brown that is, where it kind of settled in the edges a little bit more. So I might play around with this some more, but I really like how variegated it is. And I even really like the paper towel after it's dry. But you can see how stiff that is from just the salt and stuff being in that. But that might be a real pretty texture to do something on a jelly plate, or just, using this for some texture in collage or something. I don't know, we'll see. But I just love the color. And then the other thing that I did is I had this piece of fabric. Now this is from that bag of fabric that I showed, and you know, it was kind of all wrinkly. I let it soak for a while, again in that leftover liquid, and then I knew I have two of these. I have one that's still white, but it has, I don't know if you can see this in this camera, but it has a texture to the fabric that has like a little floral pattern on it. And so I thought that it would show up, that pattern maybe would show up more if I tea stained it. So I may tea stain the other one, but I thought I'm going to throw this in the rust and see what happens. And I like how, you know, it kind of set, once I iron this, you'll be able to see it more, but it's darker where some wrinkles were when I had laid it out on my plastic to dry. So again, I did not rinse this one afterwards, so it has a little bit of stiffness. And I might, again, just for experiment, tear it in half and, you know, see what it's like to rinse a part of it. But I think this would be really cute on, like, maybe have it hanging over a book edge, you know, cover a book with it or something. I'm not sure what I'll use it for, but just playing around with some of those linens. And I have gone through those linens now, and we'll be doing a video next on what I've sorted out. I've kind of put it into categories for you. So anyway, I just wanted to update how my rust turned out because I really like it. So that will be it for this video, and have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.